perhaps the starting rent. And
shall I go through that?
yeah.
Basically, in fact, the information I originally deduced from their rather scanty accounts that we saw was that their occupancy costs were £2,621 per year, but in fact it's not that. Their current occupancy costs are about £4,500 for the porta cabin. So we just a proposal was that we went with a £3,000 initial rent, which is higher than what we had previously discussed at our various working group meetings, and that it should be compound interest growth up to the first 5 years. So the second year rental would be 3,300, third year 3,630, fourth year 3,993. So by year 5 it gets to 4,392, which is something similar to what they're currently paying. Okay, so by 5 years we get to their current level of occupancy costs. That's effectively giving them 4 years of slightly lower rentals in order to get them established for that period of time. And then obviously review it at the end of year 5, and that's up to the council that happens to be in position at that time to review that rental to see how that should change for the second half of the lease term of 10 years.
I think it'd be fair to say we did agree that rent on the basis of what we felt that they could pay at the time, but whether or not that's something that then needs to be reconsidered is open to discussion.
It could have been higher, but on the other hand, you know, we've got to, I suppose, the council have got to think about it realistically. You know, if we want them to succeed, as clearly we would, because we voted to support them, then we're setting the rent at a fairly modest level for the first 5 years. And that's one of the decisions that you're going to have to resolve. You know, you have to approve that. That's not something that Sarah I had the power to approve. We simply proposed it as a starting point. They were happy with it. The question is, are you happy with it? That's really what it comes down to. So, you know, it's over to you on that point. I mean, and obviously the 5-year review you need to agree on, and the 10-year lease you need to agree on. So they're the 3 main things for this meeting. The others will change and become variable.
Have you stated that this is the rent that you are proposing? Do they know that?
They know that this is the rent we're proposing, and of course, and they know from previous meetings what our loan costs are going to be with PWLB, although we haven't shared all of that detail because it wasn't really necessary. And of course, our costs variable depending on the interest rate that we set up at the time of taking the loan. So at the moment, what we're just looking at is that initial rental with the compound interest at 10% over each of the next 5 years.
It was made very clear to them that we had no authority to bind the council on the terms that we were proposing, and that we had to come back to get approval.
Absolutely.
And that actually the rent might be something that you wish to reconsider. And yeah, I think they were possibly aware that we weren't conscious of the rent that they actually were paying. But
and our working group had no delegated powers to make that decision either. So it really is a matter for the parish council to say yes, we think that's reasonable, or you know, another view.
Has anybody got any observations on that? John, you got?
Yeah. So my first question would be: have we got, or do we have, or is it a position that we need to look at in terms of actual open market valuation now? For me, if a villager comes to me and says, you've done £3,000, I'm going to put some fact packet figures out there, and the market valuation, say, is 12,000, if the shop's to fold in a year's time, we can sit here as councillors and say we would be in a position potentially to put it on the open market, and the figure would be £12,000 per annum for the shop. I would feel much more comfortable with having a figure at this stage at the beginning and know that we're in the ballpark of confidence in terms of the numbers.
I mean, I did make some inquiries about open market rentals, and of course the big problem is there's nothing that is comparable. That is the problem. You look at a village with a single storey unit, and you try and find another one, it's quite hard. And that's the problem, if going for an open market valuation. mean, somebody would come back and say, with so many square feet, so therefore, based on square footage, it's X, Y or Z. You could do that, but of course that would be possibly in a town centre or a larger village. It's very hard to get a comparable figure.
Okay. Well, to throw back to that, surely it's a professional's opinion that we should seek at this stage, and if that is a small cost, that we should look to propose that as a small cost for somebody to come and professionally value what we have proposed in the open market as of 2023.
Would you feel, I mean, obviously just looking at it, excluding the market valuation aspect, would you regard that as a low rent? Or, I mean, you must have a feeling about whether you think that sounds reasonable, bearing in mind the turnover of the shop, but you've got to take that into consideration if you're going to make the thing work for them.
It's to put it into consideration, it's into perspective, sorry, it's £250 a month.
Yeah. It is.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is a lot cheaper than they're paying at the moment for a smaller, less salubrious accommodation.
Yeah, agree with that?
Yes, it's a difficult one, whereas I think we need to help the shop go through the setup process. Whether you are, and please join the debate, don't say nothing and then walk out of the room and say, you know, I should have said this, but now's the time to say it. This is, we thought was a reasonable proposal. Whether you would say, well, I'll only give them, say, less than 5 years to come up to scratch. It's your decision as a council. Bear in mind it is a community project. I can understand where you're coming from. I can understand the logic behind it, John, that we are accountable to our residents that are supporting us. But likewise, we are helping to provide a service for the community. Bob?
Yeah, I think to some extent agree we are accountable, and following that, we put forward proposals to the village as to what we thought we were doing, and that actually was charging less than what we're now proposing to. So I don't think the village is any worse off by these proposals, and if the shop have said they can live with that sort of figure, I would be happy with what's been put forward, the 10-year plus the 5, in effect the review. I mean, if you're renting out, it's not unusual for new tenants to have a rent holiday to get people going to start with.
Can I just say, Bob, I was just about to say that, apologies for interrupting, but to put it into context, they have also asked, even at that level, that they would consider a rent-free period to enable them to set up, and they think the set-up take, I don't know whether it's a month or something. I know market norm could be up to 6 months depending on the extent of the setup. I mean, this won't be significant, but it's something at that level they have, even at that level they have requested.
But we did point out to them, because this is a very, very
Low
good
rent,
rent,
yeah.
that probably wouldn't be
That point
something the
was-
council
Yeah.
rated.
I wouldn't support the rent-free period.
I just want to put that into perspective because it has been raised, and you either can increase the rent and then give them a rent-free period or a longer rent-free period, or you just don't give it on the basis that it's
I mean, what also my concern is that, and this will affect, because we've got 4 more years of this particular council from this April, okay, before there is an election, and so I just wonder whether we should reduce it to 4 years to give the new council, whoever they will be in 4 years' time, the ability to take a second look. So rather than 5 years, we say because there will be a change of council in 5 years, we'll put it to 4 years, and then it gives the new council the opportunity to have a review then. Also, I think the other point, and I think it comes down to opening hours. If the organisation can cover their costs by by limiting the hours that they work, and they say, oh, I needn't open today, I've covered my costs. That's not providing the service to the village.
Yeah, I was going to make that point actually, that if we keep the rent low, and obviously there is, I've heard there are issues with, you know, maybe not as many volunteers as they'd like, perhaps that would then give a bit of scope to have a part-time member of staff to cover those opening hours. If the rent's lower and they can afford the rent, there might be then an opening for a part-time member of staff. So yes, so then there wouldn't be the issue like you just said, whereas it's like, oh well, you know, the shop's not open on that day, or we've got, you know, villagers saying to us, well, we've got this community project but they're not open, or that I mean, maybe that would be something that could.
Yeah, we go down at about what time did I go down today? 2 o'clock, shut.
Yeah, I've done that.
You know, and it's you know, I'm sorry, but it's not really on.
I can understand that. The only problem is, if we were to try and put in hours that we think they should do, the response will be, well, okay, we can only do the hours that we can do with the people we've got. If people want to volunteer, I'm sure they'll be happy to open up extra hours.
That's not the argument. The argument is if they are covering their rent and their fixed costs, they won't bother to open because they've covered their costs.
No, they will open. Sorry.
So the rent needs to be made higher.
We don't know. And this leads me to my next question, which will follow on from this. We did suggest, and I'm sorry, we did suggest that there should be a member of the council adopted onto the shop management committee, merely as an overseer, maybe not having voting rights, ex officio member, because this is not a question now of borrowing £85,000. We're now investing £185,000, and we want to know that they're operating okay. You know the problems we've had with issuing accounts, telling us how their trading goes. We never ever get the trading figures. Never.
Was that accepted to have a member of the council?
Well, I don't know. It was interesting. We did raise it, and you know, and I was prepared to put myself forward to do that as a non-elected member of both the council and the shop, purely as a communication channel between the two. David Sturgis was concerned that it wouldn't be part of the constitution of their structure, and there may be clauses in it which wouldn't allow them to do that. He was going to go back and find out. He hasn't been back to me yet to tell me what he found out. But you know, it's a matter of the council, and you know, whether I do it or whether a member of the council does it, you know, I still think probably it's a good idea to have it, but it's a question of what you think, and you're the people that are elected.
Can I just ask a question in some respects? Do not we do that? Do we not get into the realms of confusing our role? As I understand it, we are going to be the landlord. They're our tenant. I don't know whether it's that normal for other businesses to have a landlord become part of their board because they are a tenant. Okay. We have a relationship which is landlord-tenant, and therefore surely we should keep that. I accept it. Then, if you're not going to do that, give us the accounts on a regular basis, and it should be. And it should. We want to know quarterly what they are doing. You know, you can't have £200,000 put your way and not be accountable to the people. If you go to the bank, they're going to want security, aren't they? I wouldn't disagree with that, but I just wonder, we already have a relationship which is the working party between the groups, and I wonder whether that could be formalised going forward, that there is maybe the quarterly meeting where they are coming to meet with representatives of the council to give us an update of what's going on as that feedback, but then it still gives us that relationship without without confusing the other bits.
If that's formalised, certainly.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yeah, and that's I think where it came to about being invited when they were going to discuss shop management issues, but it could be dealt with in that way, and I totally agree with that. Do you have something to say?
No, so my only problem with being invited when there were specific issues being raised was they can really control what level of interest we take. So if there was something controversial coming up that they thought maybe we wouldn't like, possibly, they wouldn't invite us to that meeting.
I think Bob's comment then, of course, the meeting or something, because it's
Well, then it should be formally that you will produce accounts. I don't know what everybody else feels about that.
That can be written into the lease, and I don't see if there's
At a quarterly meeting.
Yeah.
A formal quarterly meeting.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, and I was going to say, and then if we don't feel things are transparent, something is written in that gives, say, Owen the right to sit in on their meetings if we feel that there are things that aren't clear or that aren't totally transparent.
I think the shop naturally, and perhaps I would feel the same if I were in their position, would see anybody from this council sitting on their committee as a sort of snooper's charter. That you're going along there, you're not actually contributing at all, you're just listening to all the things that are being said and bring back what you decide to bring back. I do understand that, and this is why the quarterly meeting idea is possibly a better one, because that's formal, it's fixed.
As long as we've addressed it and everybody understands why and that we agree to it, I'm happy.
The only other point you raised about 4 years, so that the next council have the opportunity to review the terms of the lease. What tends to happen, as market normally leases, is that because of the uncertainty of knowing what that rent review might look like, the tenant has the opportunity to break the lease if they don't agree with, or they don't like, or cannot absorb going forward the rent that is agreed. So what you would be agreeing to effectively is a break at year 4, which I suspect is not. We've got a 25-year commitment and it's bringing it forward.
Okay.
So there's nothing there.
It gives the new council then the opportunity to review it 1 year into their 4-year. Do they go 4 year?
Yeah.
4 year. So you'll review it then. The new council will review it. A job for them to review after year 1, and you've got 3 years then to go on. Okay.
Can I ask one other question? I think when you were doing the introduction, you said there were various headings, and one of them was use.
Yeah.
So are we specifically saying it can't suddenly turn into something
No, I'm not
completely
sure.
different?
That's definitely a salient provision that you definitely want to be clear on. We're waiting for the user provision that David was going to provide us with from, if he had a template document or something that would have a sort of standard user for a community shop, and we need to approve that. What you would normally do is be quite restrictive in terms of what use from day 1 is, what it looks like. And then, should they want to change going forward, it's obviously subject to any planning requirement, and it's also subject to reasonable approval by us as a council. So if it morphs into something different, Wi-Fi, post office, they want outside use, etc., or it impacts local business or something, we certainly have the ability to control it actively. So yes.
Just that on the planning front, because obviously use classes have all been sort of merged, so you can change between stuff a lot wider than you used to be actually.
Absolutely.
And the other issue that also came up was sort of putting awnings up outside the front of the shop and dragging an awning out so you could have under awning sort of coffee. And we said that would not. I actually said the council would never approve that unless you came to the council specifically on a particular event. It's a bit like Parish Hall come to us now and say they want to break for a given date. They could do it.
That goes back to the absolute prohibition on external alterations. They have the right to ask, they can ask, but we don't have the right to consider it.
There is a boundary, which is identified by the properties that they occupy. So they'll have signage controlling, and anything they want to do outside there, they'll have to come to the relevant party and seek permission. So let's bring this to a conclusion. We've said 10-year lease. It'll start at £3,000 per annum. It will agree compounded by 10% over a 5-year period, when there will be a rent review, and at the end of the 10-year lease period, it will be reviewed again by the parish council, whoever is in attendance at that moment in time. So you're not tying the hands of future parish councils. They can make their own decisions at that time. Repairing will be in proportion to the square footage of the building. Repairs and opening hours will be, I think, with those hours that they can operate. So really,
John's idea.
I'd like to add a proposal that we do seek evaluation. I think it's absolutely critical.
okay,
From a
really,
market perspective,
From a
I would
market-
always do that, but yes,
before we set this.
I think we should absolutely get a fair market valuation by a professional valuer and have that as a base figure going forward.
Okay, I don't know what he's going to value it on because there's nothing to see. But
No, on the plans and on the values and
I think a Rick's qualified valuer, they'll be able to do an evaluation.
Well, just to ask it, because obviously we've talked about this sort of 3,000 level, and then at the end of the 5 years we then review and look at the market at that point. So how does getting the market value now help where we are, unless you're talking about changing the 3 up to something higher if you think it is...
It's just considering whether the 3,000 is your base rent that you want to start at, and whether that, how far off the market norm that would be.
we're all around this table guessing. I mean, people are saying it's cheap, people are saying it's expensive, and people are kind of somewhere in between. How can you have an opinion if you don't have a valuation? It's guesswork.
Well, to a certain extent, though, we are seeking to help the shop. We have the fortunate ability to help them. That's the dilemma. Do you want to help the shop, or do you want to? I would have thought it's probably better to have a market valuation at year 5.
I think what John is proposing is that you, at least from day one, you've got naught to say market was 12. We go at 3. We've got complete transparency that we actually reflect and recognise what the market rent might be from day one. It's not about going, it should be market rent, it's going, how far off market rent are we? Are we absolutely sure, given all of the support we want to provide, that and the transparency and the accountability, that we are going at the right level from day one?
Yeah, and I think any villager who's a tax-paying villager can kind of say, if the whole thing folds up in 3 years' time, this village has an asset which is worth in the open market, let's say £12,000 to £15,000 a year. I feel reassured, and the parishioner feels reassured that we've got an asset of value.
Okay, so the proposal would be, first of all, then, that we get a market valuation. Secondly, subject to that market valuation, we'll have to meet again and can this be done fairly quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I should have thought we can get a market valuation pretty quick.
For our next
I know
meeting.
values, but I don't know if that's...
Yeah, you know,
recommend to you that
I've got a few contacts. I think you've probably got more actually. So, yeah.
So, but are you prepared? Are you happy, councillors, that we enter a 10-year lease? So let's decide that. Are you happy that we enter a 10-year lease to be reviewed at the end of the first 5 years? So in other words, then all we need to come up with is a satisfactory rent. So at least we can agree that, and all we've got to slot in to the formula is the rent. Is everybody happy with that? Okay. So agreed 10-year, 5-year review, but the rent will be slotted into that as a market valuation, or discussed in line with a market valuation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Just to confirm, in terms of timetable, we need to then get that market valuation, so I presume we will need to get some quotes as to what the cost of that will be. Are we able to give Owen the ability to move ahead on whatever the cheapest quote is when he
I
gets
would
that?
propose
Otherwise we're back in a month's time or another month.
I would propose that we allow Owen to go
I would
ahead.
imagine about £150.
Okay, all those in favour? Okay, and the last point, can I have your agreement that as part of our recommendations, we do in fact request formally at our meetings that trading figures are regularly presented on a quarterly basis, as that is one of my prime concerns. It really is. Can we have some agreement on that we will pursue that?
Are the accounts a matter of public record? I mean, they should be, shouldn't they?
Well, I don't know whether they've got any audited published accounts
You
yet.
would think so.
You would think so.
Being a community shop.
Certainly the information they gave to us before, it is a requirement they need to publish their accounts annually,
Yeah.
but the interim ones are an internal that they don't have to publish. But again, if we're putting forward that we're having an ongoing working party with them, that those accounts to go to that,
Yeah.
then that can be done on a confidential basis.
Yeah.
It will. Can we agree that we will make sure that is a principle of our former meetings, please?
Yes.
I'd like to propose that, so it's in writing. That's
Colin, sorry,
Yes.
what happens if they don't come forwards?
Well,
With
that's
the accounts.
that is our problem, and that will be their problem. To be honest with you, I mean, I don't want to go back on history, but
No, I'm just saying, going forwards, if they don't provide the accounts, what can we actually do?
It depends how it's drafted into police as to the enforcement.
ratchet the rent up.
If there is any breaches of the terms, they have a period of time in which they can rectify and remedy those breaches. And we would just put pressure on them. It's a leverage point rather than we're actually going to forfeit the lease and take it away from you. But the fact that it's in the...
Could that be the
It could
ultimate?
ultimately be it if they continue not to do it and we could show good reason that that was actually creating an issue.
Sorry, Chair, can I just add one more
Yeah.
thing? Just to raise the question on hours. There are a number of people in this village who you could argue work Monday to Sunday, 9 to 5, and are never able to access the shop, although they would be paying for it and paying out of their hard-earned tax money for the shop. So I think it should be an aspiration in somewhere in this, whether it comes in now or maybe at a later date, but I think there should be an aspiration to have some hours that reflect, people that work shifts and people that work Monday to Sunday, because very easily, and I can name people in the village who literally couldn't get to the shop 1 minute due to their work commitments. And I think that is absolutely worth.
I think the
worth
reasonable
thinking about.
endeavours provision
Yes.
would require that they provided the service needed by the villagers, and that's something we can feed back that actually it's closer to. And there is a whole number of people in the demographic.
Jane, you're shaking your head. You want to?
Fridays and Saturdays it's open until 5 o'clock.
Apologies, I wasn't suggesting. I'm sorry, I was just
I'm
being
sorry.
hypothetical. Sorry.
And when you are a volunteer and doing your shift, you're coming in at 8 o'clock, and Mondays we close at 12, Tuesdays we close at 12, and Wednesday we close at 12.
Okay.
So
But I think
Thursdays
it's just
are
balancing
as
that
well.
need and making sure that the reasonable endeavours obligation is wide enough that we have again a little bit of a leverage in those discussions that it's not supporting the needs of the village.
Of course, it could change, of course, if they've got a paid manager, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If part-time manager, that could change the dynamic of it a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history behind this, Jane.
I expect there is, but being a volunteer, and we all step in if people are ill or on holiday.
Yeah.
4 hours is a long time.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I used to work full time, but I mean, and it's, not
Yeah.
ideal.
Okay. Thank you.
And we do have people who turn up
Yeah.
after 12 o'clock
Well,
and do stay over.
I think we've had a healthy debate. Melina.
Jane, sorry.
Yes.
Yes, Jane, not Jane. Have the opening hours decreased over time since being in the porter cabin? Because I seem to remember it used to be open after school at one point. Is that right?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I've only been in the village 4 years, so I haven't been there all the time.
Oh yeah, the porter cabin hasn't been there for 4 years,
Yeah,
has it?
no,
So-
it hasn't.
It did used to be open after school, didn't it? Because
I mean, yeah, it's
I mean,
ideal,
well, it is on a-
particularly in the summer.
Yes, it is. Yeah. On a Thursday and
Yes.
Friday, it definitely is. Winter, it does come a quiet period, but yeah, as much as we can, we do the hours that we can.
Okay, I think we've exhausted it. It's been a healthy debate, and I think we've got to a very sensible conclusion, and thank you. Okie
The
dokie.
second part of that was the tendering process update. That's only the first bit.
I don't want them putting a price in.
Yeah, well, basically we've got four interested parties so far as a response to the next door item I put on, and also the BKN. And there are 4 developers, one or two smaller than others, but have said they would like to consider having a tendering pack when it becomes available, which hopefully will happen sometime in February. And obviously, once I get all the information from from Port Martin on that, we will obviously go to a tendering process and see where we get to. And hopefully that will all happen during March, with luck. At least we'll start sending out tendering back.
Can I just suggest each meeting when we talk about the shop that we actually set a timetable and we each time just check where we are on that timetable, because I just think there's a suggestion that by next January they may have to extend their planning consent to have the water cabin.
Yeah.
And I just think things can run away, and there really needs to be a momentum now, I think, to keep things moving and on track. And I think we should just draw up a sort
No,
of
I agree.
temporary, what we think it might look like in terms of timescale, and then each month just remind ourselves of what that is and what action points need to be taken.
The key to it, we can go down the tendering process and we can get the tenders back and we can accept them in a timescale, but the builder may not necessarily be able to start immediately. So that is the key when they will be free to start. And once they start, you know you're going to be there. We can tell the shop you may have to extend your planning, but it's when the builder can start. Yeah.
It's unlikely, I think, that if we were actually starting and progressing well with the shop, and we have to be a couple of months outside of their sort of arrangements with planning, I doubt very much whether any planning authority would have a problem with that, frankly, particularly as we were providing a shop which was going to replace the offending item, so to speak.
Two things I might change just on that front. I mean, any planning authority, whoever's running it by then, is going to have to be expedient in what they do in terms of enforcement. And if they've got something that they know is happening, it's highly unlikely they would take enforcement action. If it was dragging on and it looked like it was just going into the long grass, then yes, they will take action, but they're not going to, day one, it's not going to be at close notice.
The solicitor for the shop, they're going to put in a contingency, they're looking at the application now just to make sure that things are dealt with, and that's the problem.
They need to be careful on that front though, because if they start putting in an application now for an extension of time on the porta cabin, that will set all sorts of hairs running around the village as to why you're extending there, you're not going ahead with the shop.
I think it was a point that was raised and they're discussing it at this point. I don't think it's gone much further yet.
I would also just like to say at this point, I very much appreciate Sarah's input into this, because I know very little about leasing. It's not an area which I've ever really got involved with a great deal, and it's been really helpful to have somebody who understands some of the terminology, which is all a bit alien to me, certainly, to help us as a council go through the minefield with our solicitor, the joint venture. So, I would really like to, offer my thanks to Sarah for that help. Right.
Okay, let's move on. ANPR, we've dealt with that. Surgery attendance, next one on the 28th of Feb. I can't do it. Is there somebody down on the schedule?
Amanda kind of came yesterday. We only have one person in.
Melina?
You happy, Melina?
You're happy to do it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Melina. Flooding, and David, what we're going to do with our flooding equipment?
Did you want me to take the pump for a run?
Off a long, a short run up a long pier, or a long run up a short pier.
If I see you discussed it last meeting when I wasn't here, but if I take it out and run it, because it hasn't been run, and it certainly hasn't been run with water for a long time, make sure it is serviceable, and then we'll have to decide. But obviously we're going to have to move it if we're going to keep it, or if not, sell it, or I'm not sure. We probably ought to keep it in a way.
questions we would put it.
Yeah.
Question is, will we have a store in the new?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will.
So it could go.
Yeah.
So we need an interim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they could probably find somewhere to store it
Yeah.
in the interim, but I think it ought to be looked at, because obviously when we used to keep it in the trailer once upon a time, some of it deteriorated
Yeah.
and it doesn't really get, it's in there, and
Yeah.
that's as much as we know.
We'll have to check the houses that have
Yeah.
deteriorated
Well,
as well.
I'll plan to take it out at the
Okay.
end of this month
Okay.
and run it, because
Thank
then at
you.
least I'll know what it's like.
Okay. Thanks, Toby.
Well,
Oh, yes, sorry.
might it be
Sorry.
worth, by the time we've done all that, we're not going to be that far away from our annual parish meeting. I wonder whether it's something almost that could be discussed with parishioners as to whether they feel it's an important thing for the village still to have. Because if they ultimately say it isn't, why bother? Because we need the volunteers to be able to go out and run it. Because at the moment we can't just expect
No.
David in a jacket to go
Well,
out and try and
there's only thee and me. Got
Yeah. Certified pump operator.
pump operator as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
you'll take it out for a run then.
Yeah. Okay. Play area. We've put in the grass.
Yeah, we're putting, well, obviously we have our existing grants already provided for us, but it's a long way short, of course, of where we need to be if we were purchasing a specific type of equipment, i.e. roundabout. But I think we just need to, I mean, at some point, I'm going to have to go back to the trust fund that's granted us the £3,000 and say, hey, we've got all the funding now in place, or we haven't. And bearing in mind that funding that they're offering us is for a specific project. It is for the roundabout, for disabled access. That's all that grant applies to. So if we changed our mind and decided on something else, I'm sure I could get reapply, but it would have to be reapplied for. Since the piece of equipment we're talking about is around about, well, it's about 15 grand, 16 grand. 3 grand's quite a long way from what we would need to achieve in order to replace it.
Well, in theory, we've got £2,500 in the budget from last year and £2,500 in the budget for this year for play equipment. We've got the Nuttall Trust claim that we've put in, which may bring us in a bit more money. So at the moment, we've got 8,000.
Yeah.
If we get some Nuttall Trust money,
Yeah.
we might be able to start to look at something. Melina.
I have a partial application to, I think it's called Valencia now, was Viridor.
All right.
But I need something that says that we own the land on which it will be sited.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I think you were going to do me a letter, Owen.
There was no evidence. You want evidence? All right.
You
Okay.
can get,
Yeah, I said we do, and they said, can we have a bit more than just you saying so? It's a bit like when I tried to sell that bit of land down at Dumble, they wouldn't accept my claim on that either.
You need to find the deed as evidence.
Well, there's
So-
another-
Well, Owen had the
Another-
deed the other day, didn't you?
Well, I have some deeds. It's not the deeds for that, mind you.
Okay.
We've got deeds. We've got deeds to the Cedar Triangle, for example. We know we've got that. But so far, I haven't found them for the toilet block, and so far I haven't found them for the Village Green. So both of those I need to find, basically. And once I have found them, I can certainly give you copies of them.
Thank you.
Because I'm sure they're there somewhere, up in that little cupboard.
Yeah.
I think following on from that, the plan is once we've got those is to actually get solicitors to register them, isn't it?
That's right,
So
yeah.
they're digitally recorded rather than...
Yeah, yeah.
We've agreed that.
Okay.
Okay, so it's work in progress on that, and I made a note that
Okay, because
you
then
need
I
some
can
deeds.
submit my application and...
If anybody would like to come up into the cupboard.
I'd love to.
Stand invite.
Stairs.
I'm going to take that one. Flagpole refurbishment, David.
It's waiting on me. It's all ready to go.
Okay.
Back up, but I haven't had a chance, but I will endeavour to do it Friday or the beginning of next week, subject to seeing if Martin's arranged to help, because Aid's away Oh yeah, I know.
I
We'll-
haven't tried that yet.
We could only do it Friday morning, if not, probably have a Monday, if you give me
Yeah,
a
Monday sounds good.
Okay.
We can carry it down.
Yeah,
can't we?
that's what I
It's
thought.
just having the
Won't take long.
hands to
Okay.
Maybe a bit
hold
more,
it up.
maybe a bit more than coming down.
Okay. Hill Lane car park,
Yeah, we've got the Hill Lane Park car park signage. We had a quote from Area and Signs for £75, which can be mounted on a post. I'm happy to give them a go ahead on that. And they had the sample, didn't they, from us, which you provided, Bob, the sample, and they based their quotation on that sample. So it's just a question whether we want to go ahead and put signage up.
Can I just ask, have they actually sent us a proof?
They haven't, so I asked them.
I think we should
Yeah.
definitely make sure, because otherwise,
Yeah.
something will be wrong on
no
there.
spelling mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask them.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, subject to that, I'm
Yeah.
happy to support.
Do you want to deal with the rubbish bin quote for Hill Lane
Yeah.
and Glaston at the same time?
Glaston and Sedgemoor both provided us with quotes, and there was a significant difference. I mean, Sedgemoor was about half the price of Glaston. My guess was that you'd probably look at the Sedgemoor one first rather than Glaston, but and again that would be including installation and on a post, in the ground. So it's a matter for you really. It's about 260 against about 530. That's a heck of a difference.
What happened to the old one that was on the corner of Hill Lane? Because there was a Glaston one there,
It
wasn't there?
went. There was a
No.
hoop with
Yeah.
a black
Oh, yeah.
bit
Yeah.
which found its way to the tip
Oh,
when we
okay.
replaced it. So it was
No, no,
rubbish.
it's a nice new
It
shiny.
was rubbish.
The nice new shiny one was the Parish Council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got that.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
one.
that's a nice one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
ours. Yeah, yeah. So do we?
Just need a resolution to approve the purchase.
Can I
of those.
propose that we
Yeah.
purchase a bin for the Hill Lane car park?
Okay.
Thank you. They're going to empty it as well, are they?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I assume
Wasn't
so.
there a part of the quote, and it's the fee for,
I think there was a fee attached. I'll look at the quote again and see what
which
the
seems
fee
to say
was.
3 times a week, which I thought up there is a bit OTT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably once a month.
Well,
Probably.
I don't know. It was once a week at least, yeah, to start.
We'll have a look, see what the quote actually says.
Yeah.
Okay. Warm and social
social.
project.
Well, basically with that one, I've actually asked John and Helen Norris now if they will coordinate it, because Ady was doing it at one time, but because he's now away a bit, I've asked them if they perhaps will take over the coordination of the warm and social event, and they've appeared to be very keen to do so, and they are very keen. So that's the proposal, and there's a rota in place till the end of March for 2 people every Friday to participate in the plan. I believe that we had some good attendances last week. Last week we had some very, very good attendances apparently. As I say, if you're happy, clearly what I've got to do is produce a set of accounts for Community Council to support the grant that we received. And obviously I will tot up the hall hire up to the end of March, and the supplies that were purchased by Ady and which we've reimbursed. But generally speaking, it seems to be getting more popular. There are more people using it, so hopefully that will continue.
It's better now the weather's warming up, isn't it?
Okay. Thank you. John, development planning.
All done?
Just all done.
Yeah, so just to add to that, obviously Sarah very kindly put her hand up as well over there with obviously with everything going on, so I think there's nothing to report other than obviously there's other stuff on the table which comes in front of that at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Have a slice pizza your pal, is he still up for
Yeah,
it?
so just add to that, he's dropped me a quick text, very keen to get an update. So if you want to make a proposal, I'm happy to make a proposal on that. Obviously, we met him last week. I think it should be a short-term arrangement, a short-term proposal, same as before. Maybe an 8-week proposal for him to trial in the midweek, and then we assess it after 8 weeks, its impact.
Which nights is he going to do?
He's proposed Wednesday evening, I believe, midweek.
Just one evening a week?
One evening to
It's
start.
pizza, isn't it?
It's,
Because it's a
yeah,
half pint price pizza in Burnham on a Tuesday, so you don't clash with that, and then
yeah.
Are we going to give him power? How's he going to get his power? Because
Where's the fish and chip man? Where does he get
He
it?
brought generators.
he bought a generator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know about that? Do we know about that?
It did come up in the meeting, we did
Yeah.
kick that around if it was possible. He's very happy to pay for the electricity if we are able to. It's not huge amounts of electricity, it is literally just for a low level, but he's very happy to pay.
We haven't got an external socket, but you have, haven't you?
There's an external one on the hall. The only thing would be taking a cable across the path.
So
Do we have an internal socket in the storeroom?
That's what I was thinking.
Uh,
I'll have a look.
We did.
I want to
Yeah.
say there is,
Yeah, I would have thought there
Yeah,
must be.
I would have thought there's something.
because we can buy one of those bloody meters, or he can, because
Yeah.
they're not very much at all. It tells you what you're using.
Okay.
I've seen his public liability insurance. Sent it to me. It's good.
So essentially, is everybody happy for have a sliced pizza on a Wednesday? Okay, and subject to us finding some form of power socket in the outside
Yeah.
loo. If not, can you run it from yours with?
I can certainly.
Can you
We've
check?
got a meeting next week, so I can raise it
Yeah.
with the committee.
But we'll do our best for the
Mm.
thing. But if not, you'll have to take it from you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah.
On a similar vein to that, following the last meeting, trying to find out a bit about if there were any other fish and chip ones around that might be available for weekends. Apparently there's one that does Mark on a weekend at the moment, which is a mobile fish and chip. I've got from Mark the contact details of them. I haven't been in touch with them because I wanted to raise it tonight. But would the parish council be happy that we made a contact with somebody else? We would make sure we kept away from the Wednesday, but possibly looking at the end of the week.
Yeah.
And at least I can give those details to Owen, and we can sort of get some information back for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been past that van, and it's quite well used in Marmot.
Okay. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you. Dog bin. Yeah, they replaced the fence at the telephone exchange, and in doing that, they took the dog bin off and left it on the floor. So, Owen.
Contacted BT, and I did manage after a time to find somebody at BT, which is, well, a bit of a challenge really. They did ring me back eventually and said, yeah, we did have a dog bin on our fence, but you didn't gain permission for it. So we chucked it on the side of the, and let you sort it out basically. That was their attitude, but it's a good one. So they said, if you'd like to put it on a post, we will allow you to put it on our land. If you put it on a post, but not on our fence. So that's our choice now. We put it on their land, but we've got to use it on a post.
Who did you speak to at BT?
Who did I speak to?
Yeah, is it a property person?
Yeah, property, yeah.
Well, I probably know them.
Yeah, we probably do actually.
You're going to sort them out, you
So,
say.
are we giving Sedgmore to do it, or BT?
Well, no, it'll be Sedgmore that we have to do it, or we would do it
Can I
ourselves.
just ask, is it not back up? I drove past the other day.
No, it's on the floor.
Oh, it's sitting on the floor.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. We would rather put out the channel, but we haven't got the permission.
I mean, when you put the post in,
You won't tell him how many years it's been there.
can we agree that Owen will get the post
Get Sedgmore.
put in place by
Post it,
Sedgmore,
yeah.
please? That's carried. Thank you. Good. Excellent. Yes.
I thought we had a note from Owen said that you had added coronation to the agenda.
We did.
Oh yes,
It's not-
yes.
It's not.
It's on the notice board actually, and it's published.
Right.
but it's not on your
Yes,
agenda.
it's here on your
Yes.
list.
Yeah, but yes, it's on, I mean, it's certainly on mine, and it's on the one that's on the notice boards, which is the important thing. So we can talk about it, discuss it, even though you haven't seen it.
It might be one thing that we should add to the plaque on top of the Knoll coronation that John did. Do you remember? I don't know if there's any spare space. I've forgotten.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
It wasn't for any more jubilees, but then there was for coronations.
So perhaps we could
Yeah.
do that.
I mean, it was just really the reason we're getting it on the agenda was because obviously people are starting to talk about, well, what's the village doing? I know there are various other organisations that are starting to talk about stuff, but we haven't heard, I don't think we've heard yet from central government as to whether there's things like beacons planned and all that sort of stuff. But it's just really, I thought we would put something out there to say to other people in the village, maybe we want, like last time, to get organisations together to try and organise something rather than it suddenly creep up on us and it's all suddenly a bit tight.
Steve Russell appears to have some sort of plan of action, but I'm not quite sure how far advanced that is.
Perhaps we ask him to come to the next meeting.
Could we ask him to come to March meeting?
Yeah, I think at the moment the Legion, as I understand it, is talking about working with other organisations to do something, maybe a disco on the evening of the on the Saturday. But again, what we don't know what the national plan is. So is it planned for the beacons to be lit on that Saturday night?
Can we have something bigger than a little bale?
Only if you can sort it out with the National Trust, that would be fine.
I just thought we'd just do it.
Take a big bale.
Yeah.
Well, you can't put too much in the brazier.
No, I was thinking we'd take
Overpower.
like a ring feeder or something like that.
I think it's been. I think Owen has worked hard to get us our little bale. We were struggling at one point whether we thought we'd even get anything up there because they were quite
The
difficult.
bloke basically said you better just do it.
The National Trust are only marginally better than BT when it comes to talking.
They worry about burning their grass. That's what they get upset about.
It's all dust up.
So, what's the consensus of opinion then? Do ask Steve Russell to come along to the next meeting, and then we'll see whether we can help in any way and join in.
And if it's possible, we can put up something up to say that we're helping to sort of coordinate other groups to come together rather than all go off and do disparate things. So.
Okay.
But I think there is a concern that on the day of the coronation itself, that a lot of people will be wanting to potentially watch the thing nationally. So maybe there may not be something in the afternoon as we've done in the past. But that's what we're trying to find out, what people are really up for doing in the village, because there's no point trying to plan for it.
Night instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The street party will
Disco.
go away. Okay. Matters of report for next meeting. John, anything? No? Amanda?
No.
Tracy? Melina? Sarah?
No, someone might like to check the batteries and something that's going off in the
Yes.
screen. I don't know whether
Yeah,
it's
it's
an
about 4
alarm.
times it's gone now, isn't it?
Smoke alarm.
Yeah.
It is.
No, you're joking. Sorry.
It's illuminating.
Jane? Bob?
No.
Can I just raise one issue? The annual parish meeting, we normally have a speaker,
Yeah.
and we haven't got one for this year. We had the police and crime commissioner last year, gave us a very interesting talk. Has anybody got any ideas who we could invite to that particular meeting?
It would be nice to have someone from the new Somerset Council to explain to people how it all works and what's going on.
They won't know what
No, I mean, if it was going
It is in May, so we were underway by then.
Is there anyone in a senior position that could come and speak to us?
We could shoot for the top and go to Duncan's Sharpie, the new chief executive.
Yeah, that'd be right. We'll leave that with you.
And he can always pass it down to
You
someone else.
can delegate it
Yeah.
to someone.
Martin Sharpie.
Yeah.
I think that would be
Yeah.
a useful idea, and then we'd have a presentation from the shop, wouldn't we,
Yes,
as well?
yes.
And
Is that what you were referring to?
Us as
No,
well.
there's definitely a battery.
Yeah, you want to plug it in, do you?
So dumping Sharpie and someone from the shop comment there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I think, and with our own and your report,
Yeah.
I think we should be there.
Possibly Steve Russell on coronation plans.
Yeah, yeah,
Although if I anything, we'll say close to it.
Let's
Yeah.
be close to it.
They'll be in place then.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Or somebody from the police or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Could be as a result of what we're doing on
Yeah.
AM.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Can you just sign minutes? Factual brief?
Sorry.
Just sign a copy of that, please.
Isn't it silly about that? I think it's today. I know we can have it now.
Well, we've got to wash up now, haven't we?
Oh, yeah.